I was in the PhD program at Harvard in the biostatistics department. And during that time, I did a lot more theoretical statistics work and had started working with some groups kind of independent of my thesis, specifically related to maternal health and a maternal health group in Tanzania, and also some reproductive health policy work in Boston. And I just like really enjoyed like the more applied aspect of really working on research questions, but still like this data-driven approach to answering these types of questions. So for my postdoc, I wanted something where I could continue to work kind of independently across on different collaborations, still have the central focus be, around using data to answer all of these questions, but have the independence to kind of go different directions. And so that's why I ended up applying to the Harvard Data Science Initiative, because it would give that freedom and funding to kind of pursue these other like lines of inquiry that didn't fit squarely within biostatistics or statistics, but really is its own field. So I think I might be a little different than others because I was already at Harvard and I already had started working with my mentor towards my last 2 years, Bethany Gauthier. She does a lot of work she's also a biostatistician, but she does a lot of applied work in Rwanda. And so I was really interested in this like global health aspect and actually implementing specific interventions and programs in different populations. And so that's why I had reached out to her years ago to kind of work on some of these initiatives. And so it was clear to me that I wanted to continue working with her. And we had kind of identified a few research directions before I started the postdoc. During the postdoc, the interesting thing, so I did start off kind of with what I originally envisioned, which was improving a maternal health program in Zanzibar by using like data-driven techniques. However, the pandemic hit like right during my first year. And so I actually ended up kind of pivoting to help pandemic response in 7 different low and middle income countries. And that was all through my mentor's relationship with Partners in Health, which is a big NGO that is loosely affiliated with Harvard Medical School. So even though we kind of set out, it felt like at the beginning, like this is what I had planned. The pandemic, I would say, kind of threw a wrench in that. And then through my advisor, I was able to kind of make new relationships and collaborations with other organizations specifically for pandemic response. So that's been great. It made me realize like the inefficiencies in like data collection systems and just like the many intricacies in the data that both people were using abroad to respond to the pandemic, but also here, like just our own testing data and health data and the many gaps in that. And so I think it kind of changed my research direction a bit to look at like how can we correct all of the issues like that currently exist in these data systems, which I think is like relevant to my original work anyways, since I've always been using data to answer questions. I think I'm just more interested now in like how can we better collect data and then how can we make it more usable for these questions. And I just think, the pandemic opened my eyes to that. And then this collaboration, just working with a ton of data from different countries. Before getting into the data science initiative, like everything, because I had a biostats degree, like everything had to do with data. Like I was always working with data. And so that was like, so it made sense to do something like data science, which I think data is obviously central to the science, just in the name. However, what I was doing before was really specific to public health and like health applications. Data science is not like it's not specific to any one area. So you can use data for, just like to improve like how your business runs. You can use it to like look at, I don't know, different like economic outputs. You could use it for public health. You could use it for like precision medicine type things. And so I think coming together with the other postdocs and hearing what they were applying it to, like there are definitely people who are focused on health, but then there are other people who are, there was someone who was interested in like astronomy applications. Like I have no idea like anything about that, and coming into the program, hearing her talk about that, but she was using similar methods to what we were and applying them to like space. And then there's other people who are definitely doing more like genetics work, which I've never had an experience with. So I think the interesting thing about data science is, yeah, data is central and it can be broadly applied to all of these different areas. Being in the program really opened my eyes to the other areas and common problems. In addition, I think there was a new postdoc this year. I'm not sure if you talked to her. She's very interested in like data visualization broadly and like how to communicate results to people and through visualizations. And I use data visualizations all the time. I think they're very important, but I never thought about like the theory behind that. So it's not that she's necessarily looking at a different area, like application area. She just has a different kind of that like method or data science like component to it. During the pandemic, though, I have been engaging in collaborations where, like, one example, it's probably best to say this through an example, is with the city of Holyoke in Massachusetts. And so we actually, with researchers at MGH, implemented a seroprevalence study. And we wrote like up an academic paper about our results, what proportion of the population has had SARS-CoV-2 antibodies at this point. Then we wrote up a document for the city, the public health officials in the city, with our findings. So it was a little bit less academic, but still pretty dense in terms of information. And then we made an infographic that we distributed widely to the city of Holyoke, kind of explaining the study and the findings. And so it was just like interesting to see how the communication changed and the different like visualizations we used, for the academic publication versus what we were showing to the public. And so I think that was kind of like a nice breath to kind of see the differences. And okay, we have nice figures in all of these things, but how do they differ depending on your audience, even though they're trying to communicate the same information? Yeah, and I've had similar work also helping pandemic response in these 7 different countries. We had created like data dashboards for public health officials there to kind of look at what was going on in terms of number of cases or spikes in like flu-like symptoms and things like that during the pandemic. And so we worked with them to actually create the figures so that like kind of like an iterative process to see, this is what this figure is trying to show you. Does that make sense to you? Can you work with this? How would you update this? And then kind of make it fine-tuned to them. So as a postdoctoral fellow, I have both this data science community of like researchers that are focused on data and statistical methods and computer science stuff and have a lot of expertise there. But then I also have like this independent kind of my own independent research agenda where I can like partner with collaborators across a variety of fields. So in that role, it's really helpful to kind of be able to draw from my own technical expertise and the technical expertise of all of my peers in the program to make sure that I'm actually using the right methods and techniques in these collaborations. And so I found that because of this community, I just have the tools to support my collaborators in all of the different research initiatives that we do. And that stems from doing different data visualizations, communicating effectively with the public or different audiences, and also just purely like academic exercises. When you get a data set, there's already so many challenges that you have to work through within that you could think of, oh, I'm using all these data science tools to clean the data, analyze it, whatever. But I do think it's important to kind of take a step back and say, one, where did this data come from? How was it collected? Is it collected among the population that I'm actually interested in and that I'm going to kind of generalize my results to? And that's one way for biases definitely to sneak in. The second thing is what biases like already exist in our communities or among this population that I have data on. And I want to make sure that those biases don't propagate into whatever conclusions that I'm making. And so I think that's kind of the ethical, both of those are ethical questions. One relates to kind of rigor, scientific rigor of the conclusions that you're drawing. And the other one is let's not do undue harm to people by drawing wrong conclusions and further propagating any biases that exist back out there. Working within the data science community at Harvard, I've come to realize that all of the postdocs that I work with are super technically sound. Like we all have our own kind of areas of expertise, but I think what we share is that we are all trying to use data to have a positive impact on society in whatever area that we're looking at. And so we don't want to create any harm when we're doing that. So I think as an umbrella for all of us, we are broadly interested in questions surrounding biases within the data and not propagating those biases back out into society. And I think that comes up across all of the postdocs, that comes up in all of our work, whatever we're interested in. And so we definitely coalesce around thinking about issues of bias and how they manifest in the data and how to correct for them. Yeah, so I'm looking for a pretty unique faculty position that will match my very unique independent postdoc experience with the Harvard Data Science Initiative. So I want to be able to keep kind of working with nonprofits, governmental entities, program implementers, but also continue this kind of like academic research portfolio. And so I think whatever position I end up in next, and the goal is academia, would have all of these components. So I'm looking for an academic position that would allow me to continue collaborations with multiple groups, mentor students across a variety of areas. But again, like the shared common interest would be, how do we work with data to answer all these important questions? If you want another soundbite, or I don't know if this is going to work, I have actually after the COVID, or during the COVID-19 pandemic, it has made me realize a lot of the issues inherent in our data systems. So I have been interested in kind of pursuing a position within the government or a local government body on how can we better do things from data communications, but also just improve data systems for collecting health data from people, and then also communicating it back. So that through talks that have been giving at the Data Science Initiative, I have been introduced to this whole wonderful world of kind of academics that have moved into government positions and taken what they've learned, like their technical skills, and have done really cool things at a local level using data science. So that is definitely interesting to me as well. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited for like the type of data that we're going to be able to collect in 50 years and just the speed of computing and how many questions we're going to be able to answer. So one, it's a very exciting question. And I also don't like that this question is going to be recorded so that someone could play it 50 years from now and be like, no. So data science 50 years from now, I think data science 50 years from now will probably have a lot more sub kind of themes. So I could see there's going to be like a data privacy for data science kind of group that has a ton of methods and a ton of work that has gone into it. And maybe data visualization has really been brought out. I'm sure we're going to come up with some crazy other visualization techniques in the next 50 years. So I could really see that even being built out into its own field under this sub-theme of data science. And I think that computing is going to get a lot better and a lot faster. And so there's probably going to need to be kind of a bunch of considerations around that as well. I think the field of statistics will continue to advance. And that's kind of, I think, central to data science, but I really think these other areas, just as we advance in our like computing power and data storage and things like that, we're going to need to invest more time into those topics.